I played every single mission, gig, side job, main job, what have you, in Cyberpunk 2077, and now I am here to rank every single one. Is this a bad idea? Yes. So I'm ranking every single mission in Cyberpunk 2077. That includes gigs, that includes side jobs, that includes character quest lines, that includes apartments, because those are technically quests. That includes the bullshit quests where you just collect money from someone or pay money to someone. That includes car missions where applicable. It includes every goddamn thing under the sun with a few exceptions, but we'll get there. So yeah, every single mission, we're going to be ranking it from S tier to F tier, no E tier, because there's no point in doing an E tier, because anything that can go in E tier can just go into F or D tier. I'm not doing any NCPD scanner hustles or anything like that. Even the ones that show up as quests in your journal, I thought about it, and I did play all the scanner hustles, but I don't really have anything to say about them. If you want to know where they go, they would probably fall in the D tier or the F tier. They're not unfun to do, but even the ones that show up in your quest log boil down to go to a place, maybe fight a guy or two, loot a body for some mid-tier weapons, usually a lot of Eurodollars, and an archived conversation that is interesting but not that interesting. So I won't be talking about them. I just don't have any interest in talking about that. They're not that fun of missions. Again, they would probably fall in the D tier or the F tier, if you have to know. So, in terms of structure and how these videos are going to look, we're going to separate it out by districts. In this case, we're starting with Santo Domingo. There are 7 districts in the game, technically 6, but I'm going to call it 7. There is Santo Domingo, the Badlands, the city center, Westbrook, Haywood, Pacifica, Watson, and Dogtown. We're going to be tackling all of these in their specific districts. I'm not going to be talking about a gig from Pacifica in this video because we're not talking about Pacifica, we're talking about Santo Domingo. There's a couple caveats to that, but we'll get to them as we get to them, so bear with me on that. And the order of operations is going to be that exact order that I just said to you. Things might move around. I might end up doing Haywood before Pacifica or after Pacifica. Some of it may change, but for the most part, loosely, if you're looking for a specific quest and how I feel on that, you might either have to wait if you're watching them as they're uploaded, or if you're watching this after the fact, you can click the link in the description and it'll take you to whatever video you want to see. And then you have certain things like character quest lines or specific long-running quests that take place in a couple different districts of the city. Not all of them take place in one district. For example, Judy's quest line hops back and forth between Watson and Westbrook. Panam's quest line starts in Watson, then it goes to the Badlands, then it goes to Santo Domingo, and etc., etc., etc. Same with Takamura, he jumps all over the city. Things of that nature. Wherever I felt it was applicable, that's when we're going to cover that. But I think that's all my housekeeping stuff out of the way. We're going to start the video off ranking the gigs in Santo Domingo. These will all be given to you by El Capitan Reyes, unless I say otherwise. And then we'll talk about the individual side jobs. These are usually like onesie-twosie missions that can show up here and there, usually involving, I don't want to say uninteresting characters, but not main characters, certainly. And then we'll cover the missions leading up to and involving the Arasaka heist at the end of the prologue, or Act 1, depending on how you look at it. I think officially it's Act 1. So, we're going to start with Santo Domingo. Why are we starting with Santo Domingo and not like Watson, which is where you start the game? That's a great question. It's because that's the one I finished first. So that all being said, I will be covering these quests and missions and gigs and what have you in this video. If you don't care about a certain mission for whatever reason, totally fine. Timestamps in the description and the comments as well, the pinned comment. So if you want to jump around, feel free. Let's get started with the gigs. I'm going to be doing these in the order that I decide. I wish I could tell you it's the order that I completed them, but that's not the case. It's essentially a random order. So if that bothers you, I apologize. First up, Error 404.
Yo, V, check it. There's a site on the net out to smear the mayor, Weldon Holt. Well, the acting mayor, because, you know, he's up for re-election or whatever.
perfect way to start the video, depending on who you ask. Right in the C tier. It's a perfectly fine gig. A little bit of groundwork here. The gigs will be judged slightly differently than the side jobs and main missions, obviously. The gigs take anywhere from 1 to 10 minutes on average, based on my playtime at least, to finish. They're not exactly deep. They usually don't introduce characters that are memorable, so they will be judged on a different standard. Basically, you just assume it's 2 tiers above a regular mission. If any of these gigs were regular, just side jobs or main missions, they would be 2 tiers lower than where they are. So just keep that in mind. But this is a totally decent gig. It's totally harmless. The conceit of this mission is that the 6th Street Gang is running propaganda for Jefferson Perales, the mayoral candidate, and El Capitan's client doesn't like that. So they task us with basically uploading a bunch of malware to the 6th Street Gang's servers so that the ads actually get corrupted and can't be run anymore. It's a perfectly fine gig. It's not unfun. It's not, I feel, a waste of time. It's a pretty open arena. There's some fun options for cyber hacks, particularly this turret that I was able to hack and use against them. That's a lot of fun anytime they award the cyberdeck players amongst us. Other than that, though, largely unremarkable. There's a tiny exchange with Johnny Silverhand at the end of it, but by and large, it's relatively unremarkable. That said, it's not unfun. Next up, Race to the Top. Another gig from El Capitan. That one's going in the D tier.
V, got a client who needs help with some internal corpo skullduggery.
Race to the Top. Another gig of the Santo Domingo area. This one is much less interesting to play and much less interesting context to the mission as well. This one, El Capitan is hired by a guy interviewing for a job. Apparently he has stiff competition on that front and hires V to find dirty data on their corporate nemesis, I guess. It's fine. The arena that they put you in is okay. There's a couple routes in and out, which is always good to see. But the context isn't that interesting. It's just kind of boring. You go to a computer and you upload malware. I understand that in essence it's the exact same objective as Arrow 404, where you're going to a computer and you're just uploading, or in this case, downloading something. I get that. But it's my list. Next up on our list is Serious Side Effects. This one's going in the A tier. What?
V, got a job for you. My client had a shitload of beta assets stolen.
In this one, V is hired to do 2 things. 1, find some drugs for a client, and 2, find the person who stole said drugs from their original owner. The reason this one falls into the A tier is because the environment is kind of interesting. It's just a motel or an apartment building. However, there's multiple layers to it. There's this amphetamine lab that they're working on. There's this part with this guy who's dead, and Johnny shows up and he has some insight to give. It's always good to see Johnny. There's some kind of detective work going on. You get to interrogate some people, which is, talking to anyone in a gig is a rarity. So any gig that you get where you can do that is really nice to see. So it gets an A tier for me. It stands out. The context of the mission isn't that interesting or memorable, but the fact that Johnny shows up, there's multiple characters that you can talk to, the receptionist, this techie guy, there's some investigation work. It's not as simple as just go in and grab the thing or go in and kill the person. It's a bit more involved than that. So it does stand out in that sense. It gets an A tier for me. Our next mission is Breaking News. That one's going in the D tier.
Been living good? If you ain't busy, I got a gig for you. Real classic.
So this one is you are tasked with essentially doing the same thing as you have in the other missions. You're installing a virus, or a bug rather in this case, on a van, a news van, I think, so that this news hound guy can be the first on the scene. It's a little of a redundant preamble to the mission where El Capitan calls you Then you read the brief to the mission, and then you have to meet the guy who's giving you the mission so he can give you the bug to put on the car. I almost got halfway through the mission without even realizing that I had to talk to the guy, because no other gig behaves this way, at least not in Santo Domingo. Gigs don't really start behaving this way until Dogtown, so it's a little unusual to be seeing that this early. The context isn't that interesting. It's not that engaging of a mission. The environment kind of sucks. A lot of it is just not that fun. It's very linear. It's an early gig, so I get it. The idea of the gigs is that you earn them as you earn street cred. So the ones you get earlier in a certain fixer's quest line are ideally easier than the ones you get later, in theory. So it's no surprise that the more cramped environments you start with, and then they get more and more open and have more and more enemies the further along you go. It's just not a very fun mission for me. I don't really have that much to say about it. It's fine, I guess, but it's certainly not fun to play. The next gig is Family Matters. This one's going bam right up there in the S tier. For a gig, that's very rare.
Hey, how's life in NC? Getting any sleep? Because I'm not. Not when there's money to be made.
So in this one, V is tasked with finding one of El Capitan's friends. Apparently she's sort of vanished off the face of the earth, which he says is unlike her, so you have to figure out what's going on. You go to her home, it's a complete wreck, things are a mess, and you slowly kind of start piecing together the puzzle of what happened here. This is a quest that I think works better if you've been doing the Cyberpsycho quest line, which we'll talk about in a minute. Once you can see the warning signs of cyberpsychosis, I think it becomes pretty clear pretty quickly what happened here. But I do like this mission. At least it stands out amongst the other gigs. This is not a mission where you go into a gang-infested hideout and upload malware or plant a bug or kill a person or yada yada. It stands out. It's unique. It's different. It's personal for the fixer that's giving it to you, which is also rare in these gigs, thus making it feel more personal to you, V, as well. It's not super profound. It's essentially just another cyberpsychosis mission, but it stands out in the sea of other gigs that are just kind of go to a gang-infested place and download data or upload data or install malware. So it does stand out, and that is quite a few brownie points to it. You also get some fun interactions in this mission with Johnny Silverhand, which is always a plus. It's all pretty good stuff. And it lets V do some investigative work, which is always fun for me. I like the more, I want to say social, but that's not quite the right word for it. But I like the more investigative missions in Cyberpunk. Those, to me, are some of the best missions. It's a really, really solid gig. It's one that stands out quite a bit, and that's what earns it the S tier. I really won't be spending that much time up here while we're in Santo Domingo, so enjoy it while we have it. Next up is Hacking the Hacker, which is going right in the C tier.
Hey, V. Got a serious gig, which means I'll be needing a serious merc.
This might be one of the most middle-of-the-road gigs ever in Cyberpunk. It's not bad. It does find itself in the C tier, which means it's okay. But it's not that interesting. You go to a mega building, which is an environment that we usually don't find ourselves in. So that's kind of neat. And you're assigned two tasks. One is installing malware and killing a person as well. The killing aspect is a personal request by El Capitan, and the uploading the malware is... it might also be El Capitan, I don't really know. It's okay. It's a pretty small environment to work around in, but it is a different environment, which does make it stand out. Again, you don't spend a lot of time in the mega buildings for missions outside of the main mega building where V lives. Perfectly okay mission. Not the most interesting in the world. It's fine. Up next is Cuckoo's Nest. B tier.
V? Hey, listen, there's this chick, an NC badge. Knew too much for her own good, so the top brass tossed her into the loony bin. I'm gonna need you to bust her out.
Cuckoo's Nest, you are breaking a cop out of a psych ward. The pig revealed that she overheard something that I guess she wasn't supposed to hear, and they stuffed her in a psych ward. Welcome to Night City. The context of this mission is really what carries this mission. This would probably, just in terms of gameplay, probably fall somewhere down here. But I do think it's interesting. The pretext is interesting. The character herself is interesting enough for a simple gig. It's a decent mission. It's a pretty fun mission. And there's more going on with it than some of the other stuff down here on the bottom of the list. So the question is, why is it only in B tier and not A tier? It has stuff other gigs don't. Interesting context, a pretty interesting environment, environmental storytelling as well. So why does it fall in B tier despite all of that? Because I spent like the first 6 minutes of the mission just trying to figure out how to do the stealth approach for it. Every mission, every gig gives you some sort of stealth approach. And this one does too, kind of. It's not as clear as some of the other ones are. That's not really a knock against the mission. It's a personal thing. And it's my list, goddammit. Next up is Severance Package. F tier.
Job just came in, Lee. You're gonna break into the SciTech factory and steal some designs belonging to a certain Rihanna Kumar. Surprise, surprise. Client's Kumar herself.
Severance Package is, the conceit of this one is El Capitan hires V to essentially steal some money from a company. A woman who used to work there got fired, and she wants you to steal money or information or something of the sort back. It's not that interesting. The reason it falls down here in F tier is the environment is not that interesting. It's kind of neat. It's kind of different. It's like a big server room, essentially. However, the problem is that it's a little too easy to ghost to the objective. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's possible in just about every single gig to completely ghost the objective, meaning you don't get spotted, alarms don't trigger, more than one enemy isn't on high alert. The problem with this one is that it's way too easy to do that. There's one entrance that's guarded by two guys, that is then basically just a straight shot with no interruptions to the room where you have to download the data. That might be really rewarding for some. For me, it's not that interesting. Plus, the context of the contract is a little lame. Oh, boo-hoo, a corporation took advantage of you in Cyberpunk. Oh no. So, yeah. That's why it's an F tier. Next up, we have Desperate Measures, which is going straight into that S tier. Holy fuck. What a great mission.
Knock, knock. Listen up. Got a corpo in dire need. Our boy, he got sick. Ended up in a wheelchair. Now he's reaching for his boss's fat wallet.
So this one's going straight into the S tier. Reason being is because it is the single most... Now, at the time of recording, I haven't played every single gig yet. There's still a couple I have to do in a couple different districts, and I haven't touched Dogtown yet, but I do know that Dogtown's a little bit different. But for now, Desperate Measures is the gold standard that every single other gig will be held to. This features a pretty decent setup for the mission, a long, detailed conversation with the person actually giving you the quest. It has a pretty fun and engaging car chase. It's a really, really spectacular mission. It's only about 10 minutes long, but it keeps you engaged the whole way through. It's really engaging. It's a lot of fun. It's the most action-packed you're ever going to get and set-piece heavy gig that you're ever going to see. Really, really solid mission. If you play no other gig on this list, play this one. I think it's quite good. The unlock requirements are a little tricky. I had to progress to a certain point in the story. I'll look it up and I'll put the text on the screen right now on what I had to do to unlock it. It's the only gig like this. This was actually the last gig I played in Santo Domingo as well. But it's really spectacular. Love this mission a lot. Easy S tier. Next we have For My Son, and that's going in the C tier. It's okay.
Yo, got a gig for you. Corpos like to call it human asset liquidation. It means someone's gotta go bye-bye.
For My Son, the little history of this mission is this kid or something, either he worked for the animals or something like that. The animals are a gang in Night City, if you don't know. They're the big juiced up steroid people. Either worked for the animals or someone hired the animals to essentially strap a cinder block to his leg and drop him to the bottom of the lake. And his mama is asking us to kill the person who killed her son. The context isn't that interesting. What I like about this mission, and the reason why it's not falling down into the D or F tier, because it's really not that engaging of a mission to play, all things considered. You sneak into the animal's HQ, you kill the guy, and then you leave. And that's kind of the long and short of it. There's no conversation, there's nothing like that. But the reason it falls into the C tier instead of into the lower D tiers or maybe even F tier is because of the way this gig interacts with the Beat on the Brat questline, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The cool thing about the Beat on the Brat questline is that you fight an animal for those series of organized fights, which gives you access to the animal's HQ. So if you've done that mission already, which I did for this playthrough, you can just walk in the front door, kind of evade some security a little bit, and walk into the main office and kill the guy. And then walk right back out the front door. If you play stealthy and you have quick hacks that are useful to sneaking, this mission can be done in all of about 6 minutes. And normally that would bring it down, but because of how it interacts with that other mission, I think it does make it stand out a little bit more. That being said, if you haven't done the Beat on the Brat questline, this is going to be a little trickier. Animals are a little tough to fight. They still work the same stealth-wise, where you can just walk up behind them and insta-stealth takedown them. But it does stand out for having that interactivity and actually remembering the fact that you were allowed entry into the animal's HQ. And if you had won the fight, you can also shop at this guy's blade store on your way out as well, which is also kind of silly. It's a bigger area as well for me. I tend to gravitate towards the gigs that are a bit larger than the more cramped areas. But this is a pretty good mission. It's not spectacular. It's not the best thing ever. It does just boil down to walk into area, kill guy. But because of its interactivity with other missions in the game, I think it does stand out just a little bit. And then the last set of gigs given to us by El Capitan is going to be Going Away Party, which is also going to fall squarely in the S tier.
Yo, V. Got a guy looking to be extracted out of NC pronto, or else it's his funeral.
Yes, please gawk and grovel and stare at my beautiful handwriting. Going Away Party is the last one that I'm talking about, given to you by El Capitan. It's a perfectly average mission in terms of the gameplay. It's not that interesting. You go to a single house and you fight, I think all told, maybe 6 or 7 Sixth Street gang members. The reason it falls into the S tier is because exclusively of the context of the mission and the content of the story therein. I really don't want to talk about it in that much detail for 2 reasons. 1, I think it's a great surprise if you're just playing it organically. And 2, because if I show it, I will certainly be age restricted, which I don't want. It might happen anyway. Cyberpunk's a pretty brutal game, but I recommend that you go and play this mission. The tricky part about the gigs is that if you want to play this one, you have to play all the others, essentially just because of the way they unlock. The last 3 missions being Desperate Measures, For My Son, and Going Away Party all unlock at the same time. So you do have to play some of the other ones to get there, which is a little lame. I do wish they were all available right from the start, but that's the way gigs work in this game. Really spectacular mission. And again, it stands out. It stands out in a way that a lot of these gigs just kind of fade into the background. I already couldn't tell you what the hell we do in Hacking the Hacker. I couldn't tell without watching my footage again. Really excellent mission, a mission that I always remember. Really, really fun. All right, so the next 2 gigs I'm going to talk to you about you get from Rogue instead of El Capitan. There might be a Rogue tangent here in a minute. We'll see. But first up is Nasty Hangover. That's going to go in the B tier.
There's one thing I'll never get about the Corpo psyche. They got it all. Power, prestige, Scrooge levels of eddies, and they still act like complete gonks.
So for this mission, Rogue asks you to help a guy who works for Kang Tao. Apparently he got sloshed and was robbed by the 6th Street gang. It happens, it's Night City, and they took a biochip with a bunch of sensitive Kang Tao information. Blah-de-blah. For a while, this was sitting squarely in the C and D tier as I was playing, but then they hit you with a curveball at the end. It turns out that it was a setup, effectively, from Kang Tao, or that the chip had been tracked or something of the sort. Point being, you go to meet the guy to give him the chip back, and then Kang Tao shows up, and it's an ambush, and oh my god. Now you gotta fight Kang Tao. In terms of content of the mission, in terms of gameplay, it's really not all that interesting. The context isn't really that interesting either. But at least it stands out. It's memorable. There's something different about it that pings the memory banks. It's not the most fun thing in the world. The stuff with 6th Street isn't all that great. What I do like about it is that they actually send reinforcements to you after you shoot all their guys. That's fun. Frankly, it does just boil down to just another gig. But at least there's something different about it at the ending there. And that's why it falls into the B tier instead of probably the C tier. And next up, our last gig that we're talking about. It's also our last one from Rogue for a while. We're going to be talking about The Union Strikes Back, which is going right into the D tier.
You know, I don't typically see strong-arming as the best way to get results. Still, sometimes you're left with no choice but force.
The Union Strikes Back. You get this one from Rogue. Apparently, this employer has been giving summary executions to his employees, or overworking them. He's killing people, essentially, which is the problem. And since there's no unions in the Cyberpunk world, a fact that completely stun-locked me for a bit, he's getting away with it. So Rogue asks you to go kill the guy. The context is fine. It's not the context of the mission that I have a problem with. The problem is the actual content of the mission itself. It suffers from the same problem that Severance Package suffers from, in that it's just a little bit too easy to ghost in there and just kill the guy. For a guy as scary as this, I feel like it should be a little bit harder to get to him and kill him. But so long as you can get up to the roof and navigate in through the window, there's only about 3 guys blocking your path, maybe 4. And even he is sitting in a chair back to the door, so you just sneak up behind him, press F, and then it's a little too easy for my taste for a guy as scary as the guy in this one. The other reason that The Union Strikes Back falls into the D tier is because it's a Rogue gig. Let's go ahead and get into that Rogue tangent. Rogue tangent. Why I understand the appeal of wanting to give Rogue gigs. She is a fixer. It makes sense. There's several fixers in the game. So giving Rogue gigs does make sense. That's not the part I have a problem with. The problem is if you're going to give her gigs and have her also be like a Night City legend and a legendary fixer that only the best get to work with, why are her missions behaving exactly the same as everyone else's? Hers should behave more like Mr. Hand's gigs in the Phantom Liberty expansion. Have them be detailed and long and essentially just full side quests with little one-off characters instead of long-running characters. I don't get the appeal. Was it a time thing? Was it maybe they had bigger ambitions? I understand that the context a lot of times for Rogue's gigs does tend to be a bit more weighty or earthy. But in terms of gameplay, they all behave exactly the same. And maybe that's just more of an issue of the structure of the gigs in general. Maybe that was an intentional choice to ensure that the gigs stay a bit more small scale and stay brief 10 minutes or less missions so that, the busy player still has something to do during their brief half an hour of free time. But I don't know. I'm a little disappointed with Rogue's gigs. I just wish it feels like there should be a little bit more, and I wish there was a little bit more with her missions, but that's all I got for the Rogue tangent. So now we're moving on to just these straight side jobs. These are all the gigs that you get from El Capitan and Rogue in Santo Domingo. Here they are. It's a pretty even spread. In terms of gigs and in a particular district, this is a pretty good spread. I'm actually pretty pleased with this. This is about what I was expecting. Most of the gigs are going to look something like this in each of the districts. But this is a pretty good spread. Now we're getting into the side jobs. These are side missions, usually with characters that we either meet through the main story or characters that reach out to you directly. There's a couple here and there that are going to be missions that you can just stumble across on your own. But by and large, these are a bit more involved missions. With the exception of Ride, Captain Ride, which is the next mission we're talking about. That's going to go square in the F tier. So this is a little bit of kind of a gray area. These missions, each district has a mission like this where the fixer of that district gives you a reward for completing all the gigs in said district. In this case, El Capitan gives you a iconic shotgun. I think it's called Bloody Mary or something like that. It's on screen right now. It's fine. The reason this falls into the F tier is that the shotgun is just fine. I don't really have an issue with that. The problem is that that's all the mission is. He texts you, says, "Thanks for the help. I got something for you in your stash. Go grab it." And then you go grab it, and it's just a shotgun. And again, the shotgun's not the issue, but if you're not playing a build that could use a shotgun, this mission is next to worthless for you. Which for this playthrough, I was not using shotguns, so this is next to worthless for me. It sits in my stash. It's another iconic weapon to sit in my stash, and that's neat, I guess, but it doesn't accomplish anything. I would rather have these be vehicles. For those of you who don't remember, another tangent. Original launch Cyberpunk, the way they handled vehicles before the auto fixers was you would get offers of vehicles given to you by the fixers depending on how many of their gigs you had completed. So there was incentive to complete the gigs in order to get new vehicles, presumably better vehicles. That wasn't always the case. Sometimes you get a little shit vehicle like this thing, but a lot of times the incentive was to get better vehicles through doing their gigs. That was the only way you could get vehicles in launch Cyberpunk. The way that it's changed now is that since everything's available via the auto fixer and you can just buy whatever you want whenever you want, so long as you have the cash for it. There's a couple vehicles that are restricted behind street cred or things of that nature, but by and large, every vehicle is available right from the start. So in order to change that, they kind of tweaked the reward a little bit, and it's not always useful. Not every player is going to want a shotgun from El Capitan or a katana from Wako. That's not always going to be the thing, depending on how you're building your character, so it just feels a little to get these rewards sometimes. I would rather you just give me a vehicle, which Dakota Smith does just give you a vehicle, which is why that mission, when we get there, is going to be not an F tier, because that actually has some use outside of, and for any build as well. But, tangent over. There's no story to this mission. The reward is kind of disappointing, especially if you're not playing a build that could use it. It's not good. There's no gameplay associated with it, unless you count driving or fast traveling back to your apartment gameplay. I don't, so that's why it's an F tier. Alright, now time to talk about an actual, real side mission. Gun music. This one is going to end up in the C tier.
Take a look at me. A real good one. You see my implants? I could slice you into ribbons before you can squeeze a trigger. I know it. You know it.
So again, I had said this earlier, but the criteria for why a side job is in a particular tier is different than a gig being in a particular tier. Reason for that is because usually the side jobs have a little bit more context to them. They're usually with characters that we already know, or and if they aren't about characters that we already know, they usually have a little bit more meat, a little bit more substance to them. Gun music is a weird example, and it's an interesting one to start on. This mission is triggered by a Aldecaldo named Taco. It's in Santo Domingo, but it can only be activated after you do, I want to say, Queen of the Highway, but I might be wrong about that. If not, I'll put the text up on the screen saying what actual mission it is that triggers this one. It's an okay mission. Basically, there's a couple characters from the Aldecaldo camp that at this point V is familiar with. Cassidy, Carol, Teddy, who are engaging in some sort of deal with the scavengers, and V shows up kind of by circumstance. It's just a marker on your map that you can just go to, and V shows up and essentially offers to help, unasked for, but he does offer to help. And it's kind of an interesting mission. There's a couple different ways it can play out. It can end in a shootout. You can talk the scavengers down. So there's a couple different ways it can go. I think it's fine. The gameplay is not the most interesting thing in the world. The context isn't the most interesting thing in the world. But it has a couple different outcomes to the mission, which does make it stand out and does make it a bit more memorable than potentially other missions are. It is about like the three least interesting Aldecaldos. I don't think Cassidy, Carol, and Teddy are completely boring characters. I think there's probably more meat to them than I'm giving them credit for, but they are Aldecaldo characters who we spend the least amount of time with. We spend much more time with Panam and Saul and Mitch, to where those characters stick out in my mind more and are a bit more interesting compared to the three involved with this mission. I do like these characters, but And the context isn't that interesting. It's a deal with the scavengers, which is dangerous and a bad idea, and V says as much. The scavengers do end up recognizing V, which is where the mission kind of takes a turn. They recognize them from the very start of the game, where you and Jackie raid a scav haunt to save Sandra Dorset. We'll talk about that mission in a minute. And that's where things kind of go tits up, and they can sort of end in those different encounters. It's okay. Gameplay is not the most interesting. Story isn't the most interesting, but it does serve as a reinforcement of V's connection to the Aldecaldos and how the Aldecaldos are starting to see V as kind of one of the family. So that's nice. It's good world building in that sense. It's good character building for V. It's good relationship building for V and the Aldecaldos, but it's not the most engaging mission to actually play. All right, now we're going to talk about The Beast in Me. The way I'm going to be talking about The Beast in Me questline, and I'll talk about it again when I get to things like Psycho Killer and Beat on the Brat, is first off, since you get the Beast in Me mission in Santo Domingo, I'm going to talk about the entire mission and its content as a whole, and then I'll talk about each individual races in the questline in the districts that they take place in. So there's only one race in Santo Domingo that we'll talk about. Right now, we're just going to talk about the entirety of the mission, the Beast in Me questline. I might get some heat for this, but I think the Beast in Me questline's going square in the D tier.
This kind of racing involves drivers and gunners.
So, you a turret guru or a driver's ed dropout?
I'm more an engine tuner. Good at it, too.
Okay, so here's the thing about the Beast in Me questline and why I think it's a D tier at best mission. I don't think it ever creeps into C tier as a whole, as in totality. One of the races might creep into C tier, but in its totality, I think it's a really poor mission. Here's the thing about the Beast in Me. There's two huge problems I have with the Beast in Me questline. For one, unfortunately, still to this day, almost 7 years since release, the driving in Cyberpunk, at least on keyboard and mouse, is not very good. I don't remember it being much better on the PlayStation with a gamepad either, but the driving is not good. Here's my problem with the driving in Cyberpunk. It feels like every car is surrounded by a thick block of molasses, which makes turning essentially impossible. It doesn't matter what vehicle it is, whether it's Jackie's Arch, or the Porsche from Johnny, or Beast, Claire's Ride, or fucking Caliburn, or any vehicle that you get in Cyberpunk, they all turn slow as hell. And I understand the intention. They're trying to make the vehicles weighty and feel like big hunks of metal, which of course vehicles are, but frankly, I prefer a more arcadey feel to how vehicles handle GTA 5, the Need for Speed games, right? And I'm not saying you can't have weighty vehicles in those contexts, but the problem is I think they just overclocked it a bit too much, the weightiness of these vehicles. Maybe for realism, I don't know, it doesn't make for an engaging driving system. The funny thing I think about the driving system is it's so strange and not fun to drive that if you ask every Cyberpunk player ever their favorite vehicle in the game, you will get probably about 58 different answers, because everyone feels like different vehicles control better than others. For me, it's Jackie's Arch, but But the only reason I say Jackie's Arch is because it's the one I use the most, so I'm most used to it. I still don't think it controls particularly well. That's problem one with the Beast in Me questline, is that it's a series of races. You're either driving Beast or one of your own vehicles, but the problem is that the driving isn't fun, so it just kind of becomes a chore to do any of these races. The racetracks themselves might be interesting, and we'll talk about them when we get there, but the driving as a whole is not fun. The other problem I have with the Beast in Me questline is Claire herself. I like Claire. I want to love Claire, but I don't care for her, primarily because she just lies to V. To her credit, she does own up to it. She apologizes, but essentially the storyline of the mission is that Claire's husband was killed during one of these sort of high-end races where anything goes. Guns, cyber hacks, explosives, grenades, yada yada yada. Anything goes. All that matters is getting in first place, right? But she wants to keep going. She loves doing the races, so she asks V to substitute and fill in for her husband and drive her vehicle so that she can continue winning races. Totally fine. I'm okay with that. And if that was the start and end of it, that would be fine. However, she is lying to V. At the end of the Santo Domingo race, which is the third race in the series of 4, she confesses to you that, hey, that's not actually why I want you here. Winning the races is, it's great and all, but what I really want to do is I want to get revenge on the guy who killed my husband. So you can probe her a little bit and say, okay, well, why? How did he die? Blah, blah, blah. And the way she explains it is that they were doing a race and this guy Samson was coming up behind them, cut in front of them, and then slammed on his brakes, forcing Claire's husband to slam on his brakes. And then we don't really get the details of whether or not he got shot or if the car flipped or what happened. But the end result of that was that Claire's husband died. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, you knew this was a possibility, right? This is a race where anything goes. And in fact, you yourself, Claire, have killed other people in this race. V has killed people in this race. You knew it was a possibility, but you're still holding a grudge over this guy? And her reasoning and logic is that it was premeditated. The race would have ended anyways. There was no reason for him to do that. It was murder. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, every death in these races is murder. It's not like when I do the quick hack synapse burnout on this guy in this race. It's not like I'm doing that not expecting his synapse to burn out. I know what I'm doing. But ultimately the problem I have with it is that V is a merc. They have killed people because they've been hired to do that before. Claire knows that. Claire works with Rogue, and by this point in the game, V has done at least one contract with Rogue. This mission doesn't trigger until you do the Ghost Town mission where you meet Pan Am and do all that nonsense with Anders Hellman. So V has killed for money before. Claire knows this because Claire works with Rogue, and Rogue knows this. V is a mercenary. If all Claire wanted was for V to kill this guy Samson who killed her husband, if she was upfront about that, V probably would have been like, okay. But we're 75% of the way through the races where our only objective has been to win. And then she comes in and says, hey, killing this Samson guy matters more than winning the last race. And as V, I said, that's not what you hired me for. I'm here to win first. If Samson happens to die along the way as a consequence of the game, as a consequence of the race, then fine. But I'm not going to help you execute this guy. And then Claire says, that's totally cool. And then you depart and you wait for the next race, and then the next race comes and you do the race. The thing I do like about The Beast in Me is there's a couple ways it can play out. One, when Samson swerves off the racetrack, you can do one of two things. You can either follow him and help Claire get her revenge and execute him, or you can continue on the racetrack and finish the race. That's what I did for this playthrough. If you do that, Claire gets mad at you and essentially never talks to you again. There's a couple qualifiers to that, which we'll talk about when we get to the Watson video. Or you can follow Samson off the road and you can just full on help Claire execute him, or you can convince her that it's probably not a good idea and leave Samson to his injuries. Whether he gets help or not, we don't know, right? So I like that there's several different outcomes. My problem is with Claire herself. She's a flawed character, so I get it. I get the intention. She lies to V in order to get V to help her with something that he probably would have helped her with anyways if she was just honest. And that ends up, destroying their potential friendship. So I get the intention from a narrative standpoint. It's just Claire's a really abrasive character. And it's a shame because I want to like Claire a lot more than I do. That's why The Beast in Me is in D tier, because the gameplay isn't fun, the character's unlikable, it's just a really tricky mission. That being said, if you like the Beast in Me questline, I totally get it. I totally understand. If this was up here in the higher echelon tiers for you, I would totally understand. But Claire is just too abrasive and the gameplay just isn't fun enough to carry it for me. We'll talk about the one race that does take place in Santo Domingo for the Beast in Me questline, aptly titled The Beast in Me, Santo Domingo. That one's also going to land in the D tier. It's easily the worst race of the set.
V, ready for the next race?
Already here. Ready and waiting.
This is the third out of a series of 4 races in the Beast in Me questline. The reason this one is going in the D tier and why I'm confidently saying that it's the worst one in the set is because if you've ever driven in Santo Domingo for more than 10 seconds in this game, you know that it's a lot of sharp corners, it's a lot of crowded roads, it's the suburbs, for lack of a better term, of Night City. So it's grid, and there's a lot of tight turns, and there's not a lot of long straightaways. It's a tricky mission to play whether you're driving Beast or your own vehicle, because turning in Cyberpunk's driving is so stiff, it doesn't really matter what vehicle you're driving, it's always going to be a pain to do this mission. There's a lot of sharp turns, there's a lot of police, there's a lot of civilians. It's really tricky to do this race without crashing at least once. Maybe it's my fault for driving Beast in this one. Maybe it would have been better with the Porsche. I don't know, but it's really not a fun mission for me. It's really not a fun race. I don't hate all of the races in the Beast in Me questline. There are some that I think are okay, but this one's really unfun for me. This is also when Claire reveals her lie to V, so that also maybe brings it down a little. I don't know, but I really did not have a lot of fun playing this one. It's not in the F tier because I don't think it's miserable. The races themselves are engaging in spite of the driving. The fact that there are, 7 other cars on this track all shooting at you is thrilling and engaging, and the music choice is really excellent as well. That's what keeps it out of the F tier zone, because it's not zero fun, it's just not that much fun, which makes it a little tricky. So Beast in Me, Santo Domingo is in D tier. Let's move on. Alright, the next mission we're going to talk about is sort of related to the Beast in Me thing. It's essentially the same thing. It's going to be the mission The Distance. That one's going in C tier.
3, 2, 1!
Shit, get ready.
This mission is perfectly inoffensive. It's totally fine. Essentially what it is, you get a text message by some character by the name of Jim Jerry. Apparently he's the one who organized all the races for the Beast in Me, and he says, hey, I liked your performance. If you ever want to do those races again, you can. And then they get marked on your map as gigs, but they are essentially infinitely replayable versions of the races that you played in the Beast in Me questline. If you liked the races in the Beast in Me questline, this might appeal to you. It's also a source of infinite Eurodollars, because they're infinitely replayable. There's no cap on how many times you can replay these races. So if you're desperate for money, which I find hard to believe, in Cyberpunk it's really easy to make money, but if you're desperate for money, this might be an appealing questline for you. I think it's perfectly fine. There's essentially no context at all. This was a mission that was added later in one of the later patches. Perfectly fine. If you care about the races, if you like the driving in Cyberpunk, you might get a kick out of the Distance questline. Doesn't really do a lot for me personally, because I don't care for the races, but I see its value as a source of infinite Eurodollars and something casual to do, something light to just boot up and play when you're feeling a little bored. I see the value there. So it's going square in the C tier. I only engaged with it once to get footage. I replayed the City Center race. It's fine. It's not for me, but it's fine. Next up, we're going to talk about the series of Psycho Killer missions. The Psycho Killer missions are a series of about 21 or so individual missions that I'm going to combine into each district and talk about the ones that take place in that district. These are missions given to you by Regina King, who tasks you with stopping people that are presumably under the effects of cyberpsychosis from killing people as they kind of go through this sort of mental break that they're having. The Santo Domingo version of Psycho Killer, there's only 2 Psycho Killers in Santo Domingo that I'm aware of, and it's going to go in the B tier. I actually don't mind the Psycho Killer missions for Santo Domingo. I want to put them in B tier.
Hey, heard about a massacre at a homeless camp. Send you the info I have so far, but it's pretty thin. You probably already gathered it's a cyber psycho. Oh, and I prefer if he didn't die.
So as I said earlier, I'm just going to combine both of them and talk about them as if they're one mission. Technically, I could separate them, but the Psycho Killer missions, at worst, are pretty engaging mini-bosses. At best, are really tragic stories about this really upsetting condition that is fairly common in the world of cyberpunk. The 2 Psycho Killer missions in Santo Domingo are pretty good. Neither of them are that thrilling, but there's 2. There's one that takes place in an underpass with these kind of turrets that show up. That's fun because it's memorable. She's also a net runner, which makes her stand out a little bit more. She'll try to hack you, and that's how she has control of the turrets. For this one, she's apparently dealing with the Valentinos, which is a gang in Night City, and something happened to her. We don't really know what, but she was found by these homeless guys who kind of took her in and tried to kind of care for her. But when she comes to, she thinks that she's been kidnapped by the Valentinos and, again, snaps into the cyberpsychosis and ends up killing these poor guys. This is definitely the weaker of the 2. It's okay. As a net runner, she provides an interesting, different challenge, but playing as a net runner myself, I was able to kind of circumvent a lot of it by, if she put a quick hack on me, I would just put a quick hack on her, and mine would trigger before hers did every time, and it would cancel her quick hack. So if you're not playing as a net runner, this might be a more engaging fight for you, but the arena is pretty small, so eh. And then the other Psycho Killer mission is this big guy who's got this big military-grade construction equipment that he's been chromed up with. This is a really tragic story. I'm going to call this body horror. The idea that you have to get body modifications in order to do your job that permanently alter your person. That's really scary. That's terrifying. But this one stands out a little bit more. It's a bit more of an engaging fight. It's this big guy with this giant lava gun on his hand. You have to sort of approach him a little differently. Quick hacks obviously still work well here, but you have to approach his fight a little differently. His context is less interesting than the previous one, but it is still a fun engagement. I like the Psycho Killer missions. Again, like I said, at worst, they're just engaging mini-bosses. So even if the context isn't really there for them, they're still pretty enjoyable missions to play through. And they can all be done in 5 minutes or less. Really engaging stuff. I like these 2 missions, some fun gameplay options. I recommend if you're going to play the Psycho Killer missions, play them early game as best you can, because they do get a little bit more trivial the stronger V gets, which I was able to do with these ones. These ones were some of the first ones I did. Really engaging stuff. I like these ones a lot. They're going in B tier. Next up, we have the first Beat on the Brat mission that we're going to be talking about. Beat on the Brat Arroyo. I'm going to put that one in the A tier, believe it or not.
This arm's military issue. Titanium bones, carbon fiber. Could punch a hole through a tank if I wanted. So, we got a deal? Was that piss I smell dripping down your leg?
So we'll talk about the entire Beat on the Brat questline when we do the Watson video. Believe me, there's not really that much to talk about, but we'll talk about the questline as a whole when we get there. For now, we're just talking about this individual fight. This fight is with the 6th Street gang member. The actual organized fight itself is not that interesting. He's very easy. He's probably the easiest of all of the Beat on the Brat people you have to fight. But the reason I put it into A tier is for a couple different reasons. One, he loses, and he's a sore loser, so he has him and all of his goon squad attack you and try to kill you, even though he lost fair and square. That's fun and interesting. That doesn't happen with the other fights. The other thing is that there's an iconic weapon here that you can grab, a sniper. If you're playing a sniper build, it's essentially just a free weapon, a free iconic weapon, which is nice. Also, you get all your money back, too, because since he betrays you, since he has his goons attack you, once you kill him, you can just take your winnings back, and the money you bet as well. It stands out, and that's why I put it in A tier. In terms of the actual content of the mission, it's really not that dense. It's not that interesting, but it stands out. It's memorable. It's a more interesting engagement than any of the other Beat on the Brat missions are. So that's why I put it in A tier. Truthfully, it could probably go in the B tier or the C tier. And in fact, if it was called Gig Beat on the Brat Arroyo, it would definitely be in the B or C tier. But as far as the Beat on the Brat missions go, I don't really care for most of them. So the fact that this one is memorable and does stand out and does have something different going on, aside from just go here, fight this person, win, get your money, text Coach Fred, leave, this one stands out in actually having an engagement thereafter. That's interesting. That's why it's in the A tier. For me, it's a pretty enjoyable mission. Hey, this was part 1 of 2. Part 2 is already up and ready to be watched. Just click the link on the screen right now and I'll take you right there.